It's framing. How do you frame the case? Are you going in there saying, whoa, what our client is really badly hurt, give her a lot of money? Or are you going in there and you're saying, this company it makes money and has a responsibility to its customers and to this community to take safety seriously, or to do so in a way that at least isn't negligent. And in this situation, they did not do it. But then take it a step further. Now let's look at what they've done. Instead of saying, "Hey, we're so sorry," let's let our give or compensate the client or the injured person fairly and move on. What did they do? In many ways, we framed it, I think, appropriately. And then when the defense, I thought, took some missteps, we capitalize on those missteps. Because in any personal injury case, the hardest thing that I think that you have to confront is you come in as a plaintiff's attorney and already you're behind because of the billboard, because of the ambulance chaser, descriptions of plaintiff's attorney. So the biggest thing you have to do is say, we're not here because of us, we're here because of them. And so when the defense does something that you're able to then capitalize on and show that we're here because of them, not us, and that they're the ones who are being unreasonable, I think you're poised for a better day.
Welcome to the Free Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Miles. The Free Lawyer Podcast is designed for the lawyer, entrepreneur, or professional who is in some way unfulfilled, stressed, or stuck and is looking for something better. We will discuss various blocks that limit us from achieving the personal freedom that we all desire but have not yet fully experienced. And we will give actionable steps to free yourself from them. Are you looking to achieve a new level of success? If so, this podcast is for you. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of The Free Lawyer. Really a great episode coming today. I'm happy to have one here. Sharif Gray. Sharif is an up-and-coming personal injury attorney in Virginia. He's already had a simply astronomical, incredible verdict. But more than that, he has not only trained himself how to be a trial lawyer, but he's given so much back to the country through his service, impeccable career academically. And Sharif is a guy you're going to be seeing a lot of in years to come. Sharif, how are you doing today?
I'm well, and thank you for the kind introduction. The secret is I'm making it up as I go. So, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So I'm excited to be on this, Gary, and I've really enjoyed following you. And you put out a lot of good stuff that's unique to this profession. And I think hearing your voice more and more and what you have to say is a good thing. So I hope people continue to follow you because I certainly have enjoyed it.
Great. Thanks for the compliment. And figuring out as we do is what we trial lawyers do. It's one of those areas where we never know what's going to happen in the courtroom, what a witness is going to say, what a judge is going to rule. And we make it up as we go a lot. And that's the essence of a good trial lawyer. Let's talk a little bit about your career at VMI. You were valedictorian.
I was really grateful that my class elected me valedictorian. So VMI is a little different. I could be getting this wrong, but they take they take the top 10 or maybe 15. I think it's top 10 GPAs. And then your class votes on the valedictorian. So unlike a lot of schools where it's just a numbers game, I really had the privilege and honor of my class choosing me. And it's just wild to look back and think that they picked me.
That's a double honor because not only were you extremely successful academically, but you're highly regarded and respected by your peers. And to me, that's an even bigger honor and something you should be very proud of.
Well, thank you. And it's funny, VMI is not an easy place to go to school, but I am super grateful that that's the place I landed, and the friendships I have, the camaraderie I have with the alumni and the cadets, and just the opportunities I've gotten from having gone to that place has helped me more than I could ever imagine.
What were some of the most beneficial experiences you had at VMI?
Wow. how do I explain that? So I don't know if I could isolate it to just a few experiences. I think just being a part of that environment for the 4 years was in many ways life changing. I remember this weird memory of seeing a police car come up to VMI, and I was like, what are they doing here? They don't belong here. And the reason why I mentioned that was because VMI, in many respects, I thought it was kind of like a utopia looking back. It's on this hill. It looks like a fortress, and it's got its own world. I mean, the camaraderie is there, the discipline's there, the academics are there, the athletics are there. It's all there, and everyone seems to be trying to be the best version of themselves so they can go out and do good in the world. And so just being a part of that and letting that lifestyle mold you for 4 years really changed everything.
Wow, that's really powerful. And after VMI, you decided to go to law school. What made you decide to go to law school? What was your motivation in doing that?
The movies, which is actually sounds like a joke, but it's actually true. So I have my godfather is a lawyer, and he's not a trial lawyer, transactional general counsel type. And I remember early on, I was like, oh, I want to be a lawyer just like him, make $300 a day or whatever, and that was the running joke. And I remember it wasn't until I think I got to VMI to where me wanting to be a lawyer was more refined. I was lucky to get elected to be on the honor court at VMI, which was its own judicial process in terms of adjudicating honor offenses. And that, I think, that combination of my already having somewhat of a desire to go to law school, plus getting that practical experience of the honor court, plus, and then coming back to the movies. I mean, A Few Good Men, probably my favorite movie out there, and the drama and just all that, I think, said that's why I need to give law school a shot. I commissioned in the Army, went on an education delay, and then went to UVA for law school.
I see. So you commissioned in the Army before you went to law school.
I did. So I commissioned right after, or I guess at graduation from VMI, and I went on an education delay through the Army. And so for all practical purposes, I wasn't really active in the Army until I graduated law school and actually went on active duty. Now, that said, I had volunteered with a reserve drill sergeant unit while I was in law school in Charlottesville, and that was a great experience looking back.
Tell me about your service in the Army when you graduated from law school.
Sure. So started off with our training in Charlottesville, which was, well, actually, I take that back. It did have a Charlottesville component, but actually we went down to Fort Benning, Georgia. I think it was 4 to 6 weeks, and it was learning how to be a soldier, right? It was very repetitive for the people who've already been in the military, who've gone to places like VMI, West Point, such and such, because already knew how to march, already knew how to wear the uniform. But after that segment, then they shipped us to Charlottesville, and we spent, gosh, probably 3 months there, maybe even a little longer, just learning how to be a military lawyer. And then after that, my wife and I was stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, for about a year. Then moved to Fort Bragg, North Carolina for about, I think we were there for the 3 years. And during that time, I deployed twice to Egypt, of all places, once as just a command advisor, which is really a neat experience. And then I remember coming back, and I was doing criminal defense work at Fort Bragg, which was really great because of the crazy stories that you heard and the amazing soldiers I got to represent. But I remember getting a phone call, and they said, hey, we've got a criminal case in Egypt, and we don't know of any defense attorney in the Army other than you who's got an active visa to Egypt, since I had just finished that few month tour there. And so I went out there for a trial, and it was, I mean, it's wild. I mean, not many people, and I realize this and how fortunate I am, can say that they tried a sexual assault case in the middle of Egypt. So it was pretty cool. And so after Fort Bragg, I got out of the Army and went to Clark, and then had a handful of other jobs before getting to where I am now.
Well, I tell you, I want to thank you for your service and representing the men and women in the military when they're charged with something and maybe wrongly charged and maybe not, but giving them a defense and doing them good service. I thank you for that.
Wow, thank you. You're welcome. I genuinely loved it, and I love it so much that I still do it. So in addition to focusing on personal injury, I still do criminal defense, and a large part of that practice is representing soldiers.
That's wonderful. As you know, I live in Pinehurst, which is not far from Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty. And I've just had the pleasure of meeting many of the men and women and families who are in the service. And I tell you, I'm so grateful for everyone who serves our country because they keep me safe while I've been able to have my protected life here. And you all have given up a portion of your life to serve us. And it's just really powerful.
It's a special, it takes a special person to join the military, and to have the privilege to get to represent those people is incredible, especially at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty. I mean, you have Delta Force there, the Green Berets there, 82nd Airborne there. I mean, it was incredible, some of the people I got to represent. So I'll never forget some of those cases.
Sharif, where are you now, and what do you do now in your practice?
Sure. So I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I'm with a firm called Blackburn, Conti, Schilling, and Click. We are, it's a general practice firm, but with an interesting arrangement. I don't know if it's become more common, but we're a cost sharing firm. So there's 9 of us, 9 partners, and we each have our own practices, and we just share costs. And it's been great. So my focus has very much been on personal injury and criminal defense and in trial work. I'll do things outside of those 2 practice areas if it's something that I'm interested in, something I can be of help to, and especially if there's a possibility that it goes to trial, because I genuinely love the trial work.
And tell me, why are you so passionate about those 2 areas of law, personal injury and criminal defense?
You get to help people. You get to help people directly.
Mm-hmm.
Personal injury, I didn't know what personal injury was really when I was in law school, and frankly for the first few years as a lawyer. But it's a really cool practice area in the sense that not only can you directly help people, but I think if you're doing it right, you can make a difference that helps your community, right? I mean, the classic example is a community that's not, or not a community, a corporation that's not taking safety seriously. Somebody gets hurt as a result. You do a good job bringing that case on behalf of that injured person. The goal at the end of the day isn't just compensation for that client. That's just a means to deter that conduct that led to the injury. So there's a quote that I really believe in: verdicts are to deter conduct, damages are just the means to do so. So I genuinely believe that I can make a difference and make things safer for people if I do personal injury the right way.
I've had that same experience as well, and it is really, really fulfilling to feel like you're making a difference, not only to your client, but to your community. I know you've had some additional trial training. Tell me what additional training you've had and what difference it's made for you as an up-and-coming trial lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the stuff, and I'm very much a nerd. So at UVA, I definitely took every course I could on trial work. And then also, of course, trained in the Army was great. I was really fortunate enough to be able to attend some of the courses that the Army's put on, and they would bring in outside lawyers who some of them I still stay in touch with to help. But most recently I got a LLM degree from Temple University in trial advocacy. I graduated this past May. I went to the 3-week Jerry Spence method out in Wyoming this past summer. I go to I go to the Trial Lawyers University conferences, which I really, really have gotten a lot of value from. And then, and the list keeps growing. I'll be at the AAJ's Advanced Depositions course here in 2 weeks. I'm going to go back to Trial Lawyers University this year. And gosh, there's so many things that I want to do. The cool thing about being a trial lawyer, there's always more to learn. There's always more.
There is a lot more to be learned, and we learn so much from each experience we have. I know from the trials I handled, from both the ones that worked out well, but particularly from the ones that didn't. I learned so much about what I should have done differently and what I can do better, next time. What were some of the greatest benefits you received from doing all those additional trainings and trial work?
Sure. So I've just seen so many different tools. But I think the thing that you can use, and then I've also seen different strategies. But the takeaway that I think I've gotten from a lot of it is that you see themes, different. I mean, depending on the training you're at, a lot of the stuff is the same. And the reality is that the more that you can not be a lawyer in a courtroom, the more effective you're going to be. The more that you can connect with your fact finder, the more authentic you can be, the better you can be. And then another big thing that I've really embraced lately is the use of visuals. I mean, I think in many respects, I've learned that in order to be a good trial lawyer, you've got to be willing to be yourself. Easier said than done, especially in a courtroom setting, and then also be a teacher. To break it down into what's the most effective way that I could communicate this point to a jury, and then to take it another step, what's a way that I can do it? So instead of me saying, this is what you should do, this is what you should believe, jury, they come up with that decision, or they come up with those decisions themselves. And so I've learned a ton. I mean, I certainly have benefited from every event I've gone to and training I've gone to. The networking piece of it, of course, too, is great, not just from a business development perspective, but also just feeling like I'm a part of a trial lawyer community. But there's just so much out there, and there's so much that's being done for trial lawyers that it's hard not to continue to go and learn.
I'd like to highlight two things that you said. The first is to be yourself. Rather than being an actor, if we could just be true to ourselves and be authentic, whatever our style is, works the best. And to be a teacher, because sometimes we lawyers can use big words and make things complicated, but the simpler we can make it, the easier to understand, so that without telling the jury what to do, they're compelled to reach the result we want them to reach is really powerful.
Absolutely. I even deal with judges now. And judges are people just like jurors, right? So in my motions and my responses, like instead of saying what happened, I say I'll go do a screenshot of it and I'll throw it in the motion. Like, yeah, it's funny, but it's almost in many respects unlearning some of the stuff that you learn in law school. Not to say that law school is unnecessary or it's wrong, but there certainly is. If you want to be a trial lawyer, there's certainly a gap based on what law schools are teaching and then what I think really is effective in the courtroom. And
you've had an amazing jury verdict already in your brief tenure. You got $1.5 million verdict in a trip and fall case. Tell me about that, how you felt after you got it, and what you learned from it.
Sure. So I was really fortunate to, only a few weeks after I joined Blackburn, Conte, Schilling and Click, one of my partners, Ben Rand, had a case, and it was this case, and he came to me and he's asking a bunch of questions, getting my thoughts on some things. And then at some point, he's like, you know what, this isn't going to settle, Sharif. You just want to try it with me? I was like, yeah, this is great. And we knew it was a difficult case because trip and fall in Virginia, contributory negligence. But we were very intentional about trying the thing. And we got a great result, and we were really happy for our client, and we felt great. And it was actually, it wasn't, how do I explain this? We weren't over the moon. I mean, we were very happy for our client. We were very happy that the work we had put in and how we executed our game plan and how it all worked out. But at the end of the trial, I remember our client's husband looking at us and be like, you guys have done this before, haven't you? And so we almost had like this expectation that this was normal. This based on how we prepared, based on what we intended to do, that this should have happened. And it did, which was really, really cool. Things that I've learned from that trial, one, just to have the confidence that you can, if you believe and you're willing to work, you can make stuff like this happen, regardless if it's a difficult trip and fall case in a jurisdiction that isn't known for high verdicts. You can do it. And so that confidence, I think, is huge. And then, of course, there were missteps. I mean, I did some things that I didn't think that, looking back, I wish I hadn't done. I had asked a question on cross that looking back, I wish I hadn't asked. So there was always stuff to learn. But that confidence booster was huge. It was really, really huge.
So to you, what do you think are the keys to you in that case, or just generally in being an excellent plaintiff's trial attorney? What do you think are the most important things?
Sure. So that case, and I think this goes without saying for any plaintiff's case, it's framing. How do you frame the case? Are you going in there saying, whoa, our client is really badly hurt, give her a lot of money? Or are you going in there and you're saying, this company it makes money and has a responsibility to its customers and to this community to take safety seriously, or to do so in a way that at least isn't negligent. And in this situation, they did not do it. But then take it a step further. Now let's look at what they've done. Instead of saying, "Hey, we're so sorry," let's give or compensate the client or the injured person fairly and move on. What did they do? In this case specifically, they said it was, well, she should have been paying more attention. She should have seen where she was going. And then they said, well, no, maybe she kicked the mat. Maybe she actually did this on purpose. And then at one point they insinuated that the mat was flat, that this was all just a show. And then they challenged her medical bills. In many ways, we framed it, I think, appropriately. And then when the defense, I thought, took some missteps, we capitalized on those missteps. Because in any personal injury case, the hardest thing that I think that you have to confront is you come in as a plaintiff's attorney and already you're behind because of the billboard, because of the ambulance chaser, descriptions of plaintiff's attorney. So the biggest thing you have to do is say, we're not here because of us, we're here because of them. And so when the defense does something that you're able to then capitalize on and show that we're here because of them, not us, and that they're the ones who are being unreasonable, I think you're poised for a better day.
Well said. Well said. Framing is so important. And Sharif, you're in a firm where you share cost and you're building your own practice. How do you set about as a young attorney building a practice and developing your business?
It's scattered right now. I mean, I'm 6-7 months into it at this point, and I've only been in Richmond now for I guess going on 3 years. And so I've done some good work, and I think people have referred cases because they know of or have seen my good work. I've got 8 amazing partners who've been very kind to refer me work. I've got a digital presence that I just started a year ago on LinkedIn, and then Gary, that's how you and I met. That's been fruitful in many ways, not just for business development. I've got my own website, lawyers..com, which and the brand is RVA Personal Injury Lawyers, but the domain is rvatriallawyers.com. So I get lunch with people, I get coffee with people. I have business cards that are plastic that I hand out like candy. Trying to think. I'm sure there are other things I do, but I'm trying to spread a broad net. And if I can, something that I learned about a year and a half ago is I met a lawyer in Philadelphia who was one of Donald Trump's lawyers at the impeachment hearing. And I remember asking him, because I've always been very much impressed with those who've been able to create their own thing. And I remember asking him, I was like, well, how did you do it? And he goes, because he's a solo who built up his own thing, and it was really impressive. And he told me 3 things. He said, you work hard, you get good results, and then you make sure that the world knows who you are. And he said that many lawyers will do the first 2, but they won't do the third. And so after that conversation, I said, you know what, let's give it a shot. And it's been great.
Well, I know you're very active on LinkedIn and get a lot of engagement. And I can tell you're getting well known in Richmond and really Virginia altogether. And that's going to really pay off for you big time. I think any client who has you as their lawyer is a very lucky client indeed.
Thank you, Gary.
You've had a lot of communications with other lawyers, younger lawyers like yourself. What do you think are some of the biggest problems, hurdles, obstacles that young lawyers in today's world face?
When a lawyer graduate or a young lawyer is graduated in law school, the amount of debt they have it's hard to really fathom. I mean, I look back in 3 years of law school, I think it was $205,000, and then you throw on the interest over those few years, and I think I had a bill of $250,000. So then you get into the position of, well, why'd you go to law school? Well, I went to law school because I wanted to try cases, because I wanted to pretend to be Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men, right? Joking, but actually not that much of a joke. That's why I did it. Yet the options available for the kid coming out of law school right now are, if you want to be a trial lawyer, well, the only way to do that is to go be a public defender or be a prosecutor or join a civil defense firm. I mean, those are the only three ways that you're going to get trial experience. Even joining a plaintiff's firm, I don't think is a good thing to do right out of law school, because cases don't get tried that much. And if you don't have the experience, then they're not going to be saying, hey, you go do these jury trials, right? So I think that the student loan debt, and then when you look, and then you're like, oh, you can go to the massive firms, will pay you $225,000 started. It's just, how do you, with that amount of debt, how do you justify pursuing your passion and what you set out to be a trial? And I've got so many colleagues of mine and or classmates from law school who they did the big law thing. And I even did it. I didn't last more than 2 months because I realized it was a mistake. But I was lucky at least to have the experience beforehand of being in the courtroom and trying cases. So I knew what I could do and what was available to me. But I've had way too many classmates reach out to me and say, hey, man, I'm 7, 8, 9 years in. I don't know if this partner thing is going to work out, if I'm going to make it. And even if I do, I don't even know if I want to do this. I remember I went to law school because I wanted to be a prosecutor, try cases. And it's just a hard decision point at that point, because a lot of the skills that you learn in those big corporate firms, they're really not transferable to trying cases.
Yeah, it really is very hard to learn to be a trial attorney. And I started my practice doing insurance defense work, and that is a gift of it. You get so much time in the courtroom. And then later in my career, I could enjoy doing more plaintiff's work because I had all the skill set and I knew how the insurance companies thought and knew what the approaches were. And in plaintiff's work, it's hard to get your first jury trial because it's your first trial and your client has so much at stake. So I think it's wonderful, all the training you've received. And it is very challenging today with all the debt and the big firms. You make money, but a lot of people find it grueling and unsatisfying and unfulfilling. I am proud to know you, because you're an example of someone who has channeled that passion in just the direction you want, and it's working. And your energy, your enthusiasm, you're getting your trial training, you're marketing yourself and your business. It's paying off big time, and it should.
Thank you, Gary. And it's a lot of fun, and it's authentic. It's real. And that's the cool thing. That's the real cool thing. You can be yourself and do just fine, right? In the courtroom, outside the courtroom, and you can do what you want to do. You just have to be willing to believe that it can happen and be willing to get to work. Because I've learned, Gary, that no one's going to come hand you the keys and say, here you go. If
Right.
you want something, you got to make a plan and you guys got to go do it. People will think you're crazy at first. 6 months later, they're like, oh, wait, really? And then a year or two later, you're the guy. And but no one's going to come say, here's your ticket. You got to go make it yourself. And it's that struggle, I think, of creating it that makes it all worthwhile.
Yes, it does. Sharif, what do you find most fulfilling professionally?
Helping people. And I mean it. You can make a difference in people's lives doing this type of work. You see it in the personal injury context. You see it very much so in the criminal context. And there is no amount of money that would ever, I think, replace the feeling, or even come close to replacing the feeling that you get when you've made a difference in someone's life. I remember being invited to a retirement ceremony in the Army for a guy who stood up there and said, I wouldn't be retiring without my help. I remember 2 days ago hugging a client after a sentencing hearing in which she got a $10 fine because she, after 2 felonies that were reduced to and her breaking down and realizing, seeing the weight off her shoulders and the stress dissipate. I mean, there's no better feeling.
I think finding a way to be of service in a way that we value and we enjoy is so important. I think that's what a lot of lawyers who are unhappy and overwhelmed are missing. law is a job for them. It's not something that they find fulfilling, and that's because they're not really of service in the way that makes them feel happy. Later in my career, I shifted and did almost all family law because I felt there I could really make a difference to someone who was alone and scared and angry and hurt and didn't know her future. And to finish that and get a nice handwritten thank you note of how much difference I made in her life really made me feel so fulfilled too. So I can really relate to that. Sharif, I call this podcast The Free Lawyer because it's all about how we can create personal freedom in our lives as lawyers. How do you find you create personal freedom, or what does personal freedom mean to you in your life and in your career?
It means being able to do what you want to do. That's my definition of it. And in many respects, that is why I've chosen to make the jump and to build my own practice, because I know what I want to do, and I want to build a practice that allows me to do it. And not be beholden to the desires and wishes of other people, right? To be able to choose how I want to live my life and how I want to spend my days as a lawyer.
Fantastic.
And it's a work in progress. I mean, I'm not even close to get into that point. I think it's always probably a work in progress, right?
It is always a work in progress, and we can always move in a different direction, narrow down our niche, choose a different niche. We have a lot of flexibility to choose the path that we want. And you made a big decision 6 months ago to change and be with the firm you were because it offered more independence and autonomy. And you're only been 6 months, you're growing your practice now. But I tell you, Sharif, the best is yet to come for you.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been a wild ride, from sleepless nights, worrying, to $1.5 million verdict, right? Like, it's just been crazy. But it's been a blast, and I'm learning so much. And at this point, I mean, I can't imagine going back. I mean, it's just so cool to have the flexibility and the autonomy to help people in the way I want to do so.
That's great. Sharif, for those who might want to chat with you, who'd like to learn more about how you've gotten to where you are, how can they best find you and contact you?
Yeah, so I've got the website, rvatriallawyers.com. I've got a podcast. It's rvatriallawyerspodcast.com. And then, of course, I'm on our firm's website, Blackburn, Conti, Schilling, and Click. So my contact information's on all those places. You're welcome to email, call. I'm happy to talk to anybody. And I feel very much as if I have the opportunity to pay it forward, I will, because I am so indebted and grateful to so many others who have and continue to help me, and especially in the plaintiff's bar. People have just been so kind to me. So if I can be helpful to someone else, I'm happy to do so.
That's fantastic. Sharif, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you and glad we connected. And for all of our listeners today, thank you for being here. And as always, please be well, be safe, and be free. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Free Lawyer Podcast. Wherever you are listening, if you enjoyed what I shared, please leave me a rating and review. I would appreciate hearing more about what you like best and what topics you might like me to cover in future episodes. If you are interested in experiencing a more fulfilling and a more successful life, please contact me at www.garymiles.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me so I can learn more about you, your challenges, and your dreams. I appreciate each and every one of you, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks to all of you for your support.